Welcome in to the Bucks on the Pond podcast. Steve and I go here on a Monday night. It is February the 17th as we record this. If you're listening to us live, we are recapping the weekend that was in ECU baseball, talking about a hard-fought series win. ECU takes 2 out of 3 over George Mason. We'll get into our thoughts here in a second. As always, jump into the comments section if you're in listening live. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We will get to those comments throughout the next hour. We have our cast. We're mixing things up a little bit today, guys. I'm on bottom. You guys are on top. Pause. Jonathan Wagner, what's going on, my man?
What's up? It was good to see you back in the press box this weekend.
Yeah, it was good to see you, and it's great to have your lag back, your internet lag. Already.
Great.
First comment of the show. Scott Lorbatcher is commenting, and he is on the live stream. Scott, how's it going?
Some people have good internet.
Not me.
Wags can change locations, but yet somehow he always ends up in an area where he's got his Wi-Fi across his house.
Look, I think it's a computer issue. My Wi-Fi is upgraded to the max, so I think my computer has trouble on the live streams. That's my excuse.
That's fair. Hey, blame the computer. We are going to talk about our biggest takeaways from ECU George Mason. We'll do that here in a second. Before we get really going, though, I do want to mention AI, bots, Elon Musk, X. What other buzzwords do we need to throw out there? Tesla. What's the thing? Doge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This going through the government right now via Elon Musk. So hopefully we get all the bots. If you're just tuning in, we always mention the buzzwords because I'm convinced we get like 1 million bots. We'll go from like 70 viewers, which we're on now, to like 400 in the blink of an eye. All right. William Alexander is in the chat. He says in a Hosky, we get our internet from Dollar General Walmart. In a Husky, they don't use a punctuation apparently either. But he says in a Husky, we get our internet from Dollar General. There should be a period there. Walmart is too expensive. He misspelled too as well, but hey, just keeping track. Welcome to the show, William.
That's the legendary Dr. Hoops.
Dr. Hoops?
From ECU intramural basketball circa 2009, 8, somewhere in that time frame.
Dr. Hoops. Welcome to the show. Brian Wallace has entered the chat. He says, what was the actual call on the free base when Jackson DiLorenzo was pitching? So we're already getting questions. Why am I having trouble remembering this? Do y'all remember? This was okay, now I know. You guys can provide some background. This was basically he didn't give the batter time to look up, right? And then so he got an automatic ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first game, right?
I think so. One of his 4 walks that game, which, by the way, Jackson DiLorenzo, if there was such a thing as strike zone luck, he would be ranked last nationally or top, whatever way you want to do it, in getting calls on the border. Because I swear he threw like 18 borderline pitches and got 1 call at most on those calls. All right, gentlemen, Pirates take 2 out of 3. George Mason, let's get into it. Initial takeaways, what stood out the most? We'll start with Scott Lorbatcher.
Yeah, so, the doubleheader was a bit of a struggle, and it wasn't like the Saturday game was a ton better. But, I think pitching is significantly ahead of our hitting right now. I do worry about us putting the ball in play. We only have 3 guys batting over 300 after the first weekend, so that's not something that we really wanted, especially against a team that gave up a ton of runs early on last year in George Mason. I thought we battled through some varying strike zones, and college baseball strike zones are all over the place. You're going to deal with it all year. So it is what it is. I think we walked way too many guys throughout our pitching staff, top to bottom. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I was impressed by anything we did this weekend, which is a hard thing to say about an East Carolina baseball team.
So nothing.
I was impressed with how George Mason fielded. I thought they did a good job.
Yeah, I'll go to you to second, Wags. I do think George Mason. I'll be honest. Like I did some roster research, very like limited. Like I'm not going to do like a. I'm not going to go watch George Mason and like see where their D2 and D3 transfers came in from. But like I had very low expectations for George Mason. So when some of their arms surprised me, man, especially like their Saturday guy. Like he was out there throwing 93, 94 with a good breaking ball. And like they added, I think, a D2 or D3 transfer. Both of those guys started Friday. Like they pitched backwards. They didn't walk anybody. They didn't hand ECU like free opportunities again and again and again, like usually these terrible teams do. And George Mason was a tournament team 2 years ago. Last year they were bad. I expected bad George Mason. I think we got somewhere in the middle, but certainly probably some cause for concern. But I do think George Mason watching them live is a little better than we initially thought. All right, Wags, your takeaways.
Yeah, I completely agree. I had low expectations for George Mason as a team, but like you said, their arms were good. And I mean, their center fielder, James Quinn Irons, too. I mean, that dude's he's massive. And I think that home run he hit probably went 600 feet if it's landed yet. So like they have some dudes, and they're George Mason. They were really bad last year, but yeah. And for me, my initial takeaway is just, all off season it was, and we talked about this too, because you had to, just what ECU lost from last year. And to me, I'm glad that, now we have live kind of proof against an actual opponent of what this team is. It's not about what they lost anymore. Now it's about, all right, well, that doesn't matter anymore. You got to figure it out with what you have. And we saw a lot of guys this weekend. Pitching wise was very, very good. And I'm very encouraged by the pitching. And, it is George Mason. I think this weekend is the real test for this pitching staff. But what they showed this weekend, I think, was really encouraging. The bats and the defense have to get better. But, part of it, you chalk it up to opening weekend, freezing cold weather, which is not going to get any warmer for another week or two. And just the challenges of playing a doubleheader with so many new guys coming in. So there's a lot to improve on. But this weekend doesn't change my perception of this team coming in. I think me and Igo, we both had 38 wins coming in to the season, and I'm not wavering off that. I still think that's around the range they'll get to. So a lot to improve on, but nothing that I'm going to absolutely slam the panic button over, while I do have concerns.
Yeah, I was worried, guys, that when they lost the initial game, and the way they lost it, like George Mason kind of took control. I was getting major Bryant flashbacks. Like I thought the Pirates were about to get swept. And honestly, like they looked like they were going to lose game 2. I mean, really, guys, the only thing the offense did well was hit the ball out of the ballpark. Like, I mean, did that account for almost all their runs, basically? I mean, Dixon.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah, it's hard to think of a run we scored that wasn't on a home run.
So Peltier, we'll learn, by the way, it's Alex Peltier, right? Wags, I think we were told in the press box is how he wanted it to be said.
We scored on air as well.
Okay. And I think there was a bases loaded walk Austin Irby had, and I think that was it. Like, because Colby Wallace had a solo shot, Dixon William had 2 home runs, driving in 5. Irby had the bases loaded walk. Alex Boucher had the home run, and then Peltier had the home run. So, yeah, really atypical of an ECU team that, and we'll get to this too, like usually it's all about getting on base and putting the pressure on the opposing team, and ECU instead won via the long ball, which, is not a bad thing, but not what Cliff Godwin wants to make a habit of. All right, we got a lot to get into. We will discuss some of the individual performances and standouts. I want to read some of these comments. We always want to make the show interactive as possible. Chris Allen says our hitting might not be good, but we got 2 in the win tally. JPN 1212 says he's back. Sorry I missed last week's podcast. Was still celebrating my Eagles Super Bowl win. Congrats, JPN 1212. Any update on when we see Riley Johnson? JPN wants to know. So essentially, we were told he has a hip flexor. Now, I did some research. Unfortunately, Wags, you're not a hip flexor expert like you are a shoulder expert, correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm out of my area of expertise here. So
What about you, Scott?
can't.
You've been injured and seeing the physical therapist lately, so can you provide any insight here?
It's all knee, but I will
Uh,
tell you that when it's cold, my joint pain is much worse than when it's not cold. So
all right.
maybe that's what it is. So I
So
would say if it's cold, we probably won't see him Tuesday or maybe even this weekend.
maybe ever. If it ever, maybe it'll never warm up. According to the AI overview on Google, so take this for what it is worth. Recovery time by the hip flexor strain grade can vary. If it is a mild strain, which involves minimal tearing, that takes 2 to 3 weeks to totally heal. Moderate would take 4 to 6, and a severe, which I don't think it is this category, would take 8+ weeks to heal. From my understanding, it's more in the mild range. At least that is the initial thought. And so I doubt you'll see him against Campbell. And again, it would just seem we don't know when the injury happened. It would seem unlikely that he would be at 100% for UNC, but we know Riley Johnson is a tough son of a gun, and I would not count him out. But that too, Scott, like how much did Riley Johnson's absence potentially impact this lineup? Maybe not looking great.
Yeah, we looked lost in the leadoff spot really up until Saturday when Dixon moved into that, and I kind of wondered after the first game if we would see like the immediate reaction to move Dixon into the leadoff spot. And I think if this weekend played out like a normal weekend where we play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think we would have seen him in the leadoff spot on Saturday. But because we played back-to-back games, you kind of probably already set the lineup and knew more or less what you wanted to do going into that second game. So maybe there wasn't enough time to make that decision. But I really like Dixon at the leadoff spot. I think it gives you some versatility, some pop at the top of the lineup too, especially with the way the bottom of the lineup hit this weekend in Peltier and Walker Barron. So I do think that finding someone that can fill that leadoff role is going to be vital for us scoring runs on Tuesday and especially this weekend.
All right. Seatown Pirate adds that Cliff said it would be a miracle if Riley Johnson was ready for Friday, but I wouldn't put anything past Riley Johnson. He said that on 94.3 The Game inside Pirate Athletics. So there's your Riley Johnson update. And sorry, our comment section is making me laugh. But yes, that is the latest. So I would think, with his game being such a running style and built on speed, the last thing you want to do is re-aggravate this. So, look, it would be great to get him back, but it's going to be tough for this weekend, which is a blow. But it's just, look, man, injuries are part of sports. You got 2 pitchers down right now. You got Riley Johnson down. You got to overcome it. Chris Allen says, big shout out to Wags for not updating the background whatsoever. Commitment to minimalism. Good job, Wags.
Maybe I'll lower that picture next week. So we at least have something in the middle of the wall.
There you go.
It'll be
all right. Yeah, I mean, hey, baby steps are progress. JPN1212 says, what about Jaden Winters? Jaden Winter, which, by the way, I've called him Jaden Winters as well in the past, so I'm not saying that you're wrong. But Jaden Winter did not throw this weekend. I assume he's healthy, and I would expect him to throw tomorrow against Campbell. JPN also asked who starts tomorrow. Nick Moran is listed as the starter. He will face a former Pirate pitcher, by the way, who had transferred out of the program after a year. Mason Smith went JUCO to Gaston College. Now he will start for Campbell. But I would expect a bullpen day for both guys. We'll talk about Tuesday's game a little bit later. All right. Let's go around the horn here. We'll get into more comments. Wags, like what position player surprised you, either good or bad? You can go and you can throw out both. Like what surprised you, good and bad, from this weekend? What position player stood out?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call this a surprise necessarily, but I wasn't, I think, as high on some people coming into the year on Alex Boucher. And shortstop, I think I'm glad he looked very good at shortstop, I thought. His arm is noticeable. I think it took less than an inning on Friday in the first game. The first double play, I think we all kind of looked at each other in the press box and we're like, we don't make that play last year. And one, I think it was a good play at third. And then his arm covering second base too, it was noticeable. And it was noticeable throughout the weekend. And I think he had some great at-bats too. And obviously you don't get the wind assisted ball out to right field in February very often, like you did on the walk off homer. But even take that ball away, and I think he had a lot of good at bats throughout the weekend, and he had a lot of loud contact throughout the weekend. So Boucher, he's a guy, especially when we're talking about lineup uncertainty and maybe no Riley Johnson for a bit at the top, and Dixon slides up. To me, Boucher makes me feel a lot better about that because you have another guy who can hit for power in the middle of the lineup. So Boucher, again, I wouldn't call it a huge surprise, but to me, I think he was the most notable newcomer of the weekend. And there's more in the lineup too, but he was the one who stood out the most to me.
What about you, Scott? Good or bad?
I think Peltier having a little bit of pop surprised me. I really didn't expect him to be a guy that could get the ball out of the ballpark the way that he did. Kind of thought he would be more in that Riley Johnson vein of lay a bunt down, kind of slash the balls through the infield. So that was great to see. I go back to the bottom of the lineup. So him and Walker Barron, I think, put together a ton of great at bats and hit the ball hard all weekend. And there weren't a lot of guys who hit the ball hard all weekend, and there was a lot of soft contact out of the lineup. But Walker Barron barreled up a lot of balls.
Yeah, I thought Boucher and Barron had good at bats and maybe didn't have as much to show for it as the stats would suggest. Colby Wallace, to me, he hit a couple balls hard right at people, and then he did some damage. And I think they're going to need Colby to provide some power this year while obviously finding a way to keep his contact rate up. He's got very good bat to ball skills, but he didn't homer at all last season. Not that he had a ton of at bats, but I think he only hit 1 or 2 home runs over the summer too. So he's this big dude, big physical guy, and I think he had a bit of a growth spurt late in high school. I think it's kind of taken him some time to really figure out his swing, and to me, he just looked like better at the plate, like more in charge of what he was trying to do. So I think he's going to hit the ball with some authority this season, which stood out. Even though the numbers, I think 182 on the weekend, didn't really jump out that much. I think Keenan Bowman, he had some good at bats Friday and then maybe didn't have the success. And I thought he kind of pressed a little bit as the weekend went on, but I still want to see him get a shot. I mean, the thing is, too, guys like Braxton Trammell, he only had a few at bats and was pulled. I mean, we got to remember, too, 3 games out of 56, extremely small sample size. So I'm not going to overreact one way or the other. But you could see some guys who are maybe feeling a little more pressure than others, which will bear monitoring moving forward. All right. Let's see here. Some comments. Skull Pirate wants to know. He's just coming at Wags. He said that did Wags watch the games or UNC? So how much of the Texas Tech North Carolina series did you check out?
Not a single second. I was in the press box for both games.
I can confirm he was there.
Yeah, I was there for both games, and I watched ECU on Saturday while I was working. So I did not watch because I'm an ECU fan.
So you can't provide any scouting report on Tar Heels. Are you even doing your job?
I was filling out a scorebook on Saturday while I worked, so
that's yeah.
He just doesn't want us to give us any insight so we can plan for.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right, another comment here on Wags from Skull Party says, "Can we get Wags' best Bobby Boucher impression?" Either of y'all got Bobby Boucher?
I don't think anybody wants to hear that.
My impression days are over.
Yeah, I will pass. I am definitely not doing a Bobby Boucher impression.
What was that?
Nothing. That was the start of one, and I realized how dumb it sounded. It was immediately shot down. Jacob Smith says, "What is up with Davin Whitaker? Thought he had a great summer, was poised for a role." Davin Whitaker, to me, he's looked solid in the scrimmages. I would like to see him get a shot, and I think he will get a shot at some point. The issue is right now, Austin Irby had a really good offseason. He plays first. He's that left-handed hitter. You also have Colby Wallace playing some first, and then you had Keenan Bowman. You had Jack Herring get some ABs, who's really got a solid bat at the dish. And you just have a lot of guys in that corner, first base, corner outfield role. I think Davin Whitaker will get a shot. Wags, was Whitaker in your initial – I think Whitaker and Jack Herring were both in your initial lineup projection way back like July 1st. You think he's getting a shot soon?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, but in I may be wrong on this, but I don't remember seeing him take infield outfield on Friday. I think it was just Colby and Irby at first, and I don't remember seeing him in right field. And I could be wrong on that, but just from what I saw, I don't remember him seeing out there, so I don't know if he was available this weekend for whatever reason. But yeah, I was surprised if he was healthy that he didn't get in. But it's 3 games, and Friday was one big long day, and you can only do so much too. But he's a guy I think you will see. I don't think he's a guy who's going to be a lineup regular, but I think he's going to be one of those guys. And I think we have a lot of these guys on the team where, situationally, I think you have a lot more guys on the team that are ready to play a role and are going to have to play a role because there's not as many proven guys in the lineup. But I think Whitaker's a guy like John Collins. We didn't see John Collins either. I think you're going to see those guys a lot as the season goes on, pinch hitting in the mid to late innings situationally. So, yeah, I was surprised, but I do think we'll see him a little bit more.
All right. Jonathan Woodall says definitely missing Jacob Jenkins Coward's arm in right field. Yeah, there were a couple throws, Scott, that I'm not going to say expected to be out at home plate, but, just could have been out at home plate. You had a weird one where, honestly, it was a pretty good throw. It was just kind of an in-between hop on the turf, by the way. That Walker Barron couldn't snag run scores. What was your thought on the defense, which I know we've texted a little bit about, maybe a little bit of concern. But again, 3 games, do we expect it to get better? Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people on this team that are playing with new people than they were last year, right? You have a lot of freshmen, you have a lot of transfers on the infield, and then you have 2 guys that are still here, but they've moved around some in the infield. And, I think not only do you have new players, transfers, but you also have a new surface that you're playing on all over the infield. There was one bunt, I think it was in the second game on Friday, where we kind of let it roll. And last year that ball rolls fast, and this year it didn't. And it's because it's turf and not dirt. So I think defensively we will improve. And I think that's always been a hallmark of Cliff Godwin teams is to be good defensively. But we did not look like a Cliff Godwin team this weekend defensively. Really at all. You look at the Saturday game, the pop-up that Dixon drops that, it's a hard play. It's cold. The wind's blowing. But he could still have made the throw to second to get the out. And I think those are things that you work on during the week and will get better and better. And hopefully by the time conference play rolls around, I think what we saw were less physical ability errors and more just not being in the right places or making the right play. So I think we'll get better, but it was a little bit disappointing to see the defensive effort this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, George Mason looked like the better defensive team. I mean, they really did. And I do want to bring up Williams' point. He says, I thought Walker Barron was a bright spot all weekend. He hit the ball hard. He played well defensively. Yeah, I don't remember, unless there was one early Saturday, when I was taking my son to the game. I don't remember a ball getting past him for like a wild pitch or a pass ball. Do y'all remember anything getting past him?
I think Hilo threw one by him when he was struggling there. But
so maybe one. I mean,
Colby Wallace had one too. Wallace had one that was like, it would have been impossible to catch up, pretty sure.
So yeah, I'm looking at it. All right, so ECU officially has it as one wild pitch on the weekend, and I'm not seeing. Let's see if not seeing a pass ball. So yeah, it must have been Colby. So yeah, I mean that's the thing is, it's one of those things where, to me, he looked good defensively, and first time starting catcher. Really, I thought he looked really good, which is a bright spot. William adds, in my opinion, we look like a young team. We should only get better going forward. All right, Cameron adds, I think we have a lot of talent. Only issues, we are so young. Could be a struggle offensively due to the inexperience in our lineup. Some of these guys will have to grow up quick. All right, Kaysen Rameli's in the chat, by the way, former Hoist the Colors intern. I do want to give him a shout-out. They've got the Carolina Curveball podcast going every Thursday and Sunday night. Thursday, they have a weekend preview. Sunday night, they've got a weekend recap. So make sure to check that out. Support Him and his friend are Pirates, and obviously covering a lot of ECU stuff, but Carolina Curveball, a lot of good baseball across the Carolinas. So just want to give him a shout out and support his cause. All right, couple things. Jacob Smith's got a good question. We'll go around the horn. Bounce back candidate for this weekend. Someone that didn't play well against George Mason, but will play good versus Campbell, UNC. We'll start with Wags.
Yeah, this is I think there's a lot of candidates here, and I'm gonna mention someone who I don't think was necessarily bad, but Ethan Norby to me, in the opening game, he was good when he was on, but he had those stretches where he just kind of lost it, and he struggled with hit batters, and he just didn't look sharp. It was the first game of the season, and he wasn't supposed to be in that role, so you only take so much from it. But I do think that Norby, now that he has another game against live hitters from another team under his belt for the season, he's going to be a little more comfortable. And Ethan Norby is ready for the big moments too. And this upcoming weekend against UNC is the biggest moment of ECU's season. So, he's going to be ready for that moment. He's going to be eager to get out there and set the tone on Friday night and show these young guys, first of all, what the series is, and then show them that, a lot of people are going to pick UNC to win the series. And, for good reason, I think UNC is a more talented team. But Ethan Norby is going to come out there and be ready to show the guys in the locker room that, we believe we can win this series. And I think he's going to go out there and set the tone on Friday night. So I'm excited to watch him pitch. Again, big moment, and he's built for those moments.
Scott?
I was fully prepared to talk about Ethan Norby. But I'll go Colby Wallace. Colby Wallace only had 2 hits. He had a home run and a double. He actually hit the only double of anyone on the team this weekend. But I think you'll see his batting average shoot up this week. And he's a guy that, he's been here. He's played against UNC before. I don't think the stage is too big for him. So, Colby Wallace.
All right, Skull Pirates says, here goes Wags, the Tar Heel fan. I mean, UNC, I was texting somebody who's in the travel ball circuit. They are extremely talented. So what he said is true, even if it pains ECU fans. Doesn't mean ECU can't win the series. I'm just saying. They are very, very talented and very good.
Pains me to say it too.
No, it doesn't.
Not you too.
Zach Griffin says Braxton Trammell will bounce back this week. I thought about Braxton Trammell. I thought about Keenan Bowman. I'm going to go Ethan Young. I think he's a guy who, he just got behind in counts. He's got plus stuff. Now he's going to have to get ahead in counts against much better offenses in Campbell and North Carolina, but he's got electric stuff. He's just got to go out there and pound the zone. So I think and I really thought George Mason did a phenomenal job. He threw a ton of breaking balls that they did not chase. And I guess, for whatever reason, they were sitting heater and they were able to identify what was a breaking ball, what was a heater. So if Ethan Young can get some swings on the breaking ball and obviously get ahead with his fastball, then I think he can have a bounce back because he's got the stuff. So there's my pick on that. All right. Is Campbell really bad or UC Santa Barbara really good? Santa Barbara's got a couple projected top picks in their rotation, right? So I think they're pretty damn good. Now Campbell with a first-year coach, tough start, man. I know they played him at home last year, but to go West Coast, fly back across, and then have to turn around and play ECU, that's not really setting yourself up for success. So I don't know. Do y'all have any more insight on the Camels?
Yeah, Santa Barbara is really good. I think they're going to be in the hosting discussion again at the end of the year. So, yeah, I think they are that good. And, yeah, Tyler Bremner, their ace, is definitely going to be picked in the top 5. He's got a case for number 1. So, yeah, they're legit. And I do think Campbell is down. But, man, I'm still excited for tomorrow because we all know how these games go. And ECU needs this one just as much as Campbell does for this season. ECU needs it for the rivalry aspect.
All right, Carolina Curveball Campbell expert Casey Ramaley says Campbell lacks hitting. He also says it will be 40 degrees tomorrow, so let's see what happens. Tim Earl says anyone coming to the game tomorrow night at Campbell? Is anyone going? Either of y'all going?
Every intention of going, and then I looked at the forecast. And last year I froze to death at Jim Perry Stadium, and we lost. So I'm just going to stay at home this year.
That is fair. William Alexander says, I am hoping Campbell is jet lagged and we find a way to break the curse in Bowie's Creek. The games always seem like it comes down to the last at bat. I know that much. So I am expecting that tomorrow because that is ECU Campbell, especially in Bowie's Creek. All right. Skull Pirate, who always seems to have a bit of a negative tone with his questions, but he says, do we truly believe Ethan Norby is a number one? I look, I mean, Ethan Norby to me is not a number one like Friday night starter. He doesn't profile that way. That doesn't mean he's not a very good pitcher. Like I think his frame and his build and kind of has a rubber arm as he showed last year, ability to pitch multiple outings. I think he's perfectly suited for more of a bullpen role who can pitch multiple times per week in time. But right now, I think ECU needs him in this spot. So I don't know. Do y'all have any differing opinions on Ethan Norby at this point? We'll start with Wax.
No, I agree. I think he's best suited in a bullpen role, but at the same time, I think he's one of the most flexible pitchers ECU's had in a while. So I do think he's capable of, stepping in like he did this past weekend, and like I'm sure he will this upcoming weekend. And whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, he's capable of doing it. I don't think that's the best role for him, but in a situation like ECU's in right now, I think he's a guy you want on your team, and you love to have him. Again, like I said earlier, I think this type of scenario coming up on Friday night where the moment's going to be big, if you're picking someone on your team who you want on the mound, Ethan Norby might be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, he's a competitor. And I mean, like, I agree. I think he's going to rise to the occasion. And his stuff has taken a jump. He was like 91 and 93. So that is my thoughts there. I don't know. You got anything to add, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Brad Pruitt and his performance this weekend allows you to not need Norby as your Friday guy. And, I like Norby, but I like him much more as a change of pace or Sunday guy over your first guy out of the bullpen Friday night starter type guy. I just think that Friday night you need a guy who can come in and shut things down for a long time. And I think Norby does a great job, but I think oftentimes he has to work through runners on base, pitch to softer contact, or whereas a guy like Sean Jenkins can come in and just shut down an offense. Obviously he gave up 3 runs, but 2 of those were unearned. He only gave up 1 hit. And with the way that he pitched on Saturday, I wouldn't have hated if we started him on Friday night. And I think it would have given us a better chance to win that first game had he started.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about a lot of the individual pitching performances, but I thought Pruitt was electric. He not only had the slider to righties, but he showed off the split to get lefties. So, I mean, look, you're talking about fastball, low 90s, slider, splitter. I think he's definitely got starting potential. And it's just like, do they want to make that move, or do they, with him pitching so well, do they want to keep him in that bullpen role for now? Lance Williams, I thought, guys, looked pretty damn electric too. And honestly, Bradley Zayak, I didn't expect him to come out throwing like 92 to 94. So they've got some arms, Wax.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And Pruitt, and I'm going to have to look back through our text messages to confirm this, but I think as we got our class finalized, our transfer class, and we kind of knew what ECU had coming into the season, I think Pruitt was a guy that I'm like, I could see him being a Friday night guy eventually. I think he's got the stuff, and we saw it. And yeah, Lance Williams blew me away. I was excited to see him, and I was disappointed he wasn't first out of the bullpen because that was my prediction last week in our podcast. So I was a little disappointed that the staff listened to the podcast probably and decided, oh, we can't let Wags win. That's definitely what happened. But, man, he came out there and he looked good. And I think he's one of those guys. He profiles as a back-end bullpen type guy. And that's valuable to have. And Zayak looked really good. Zayak, I think, first 3 innings he was almost unhittable. And then he got into the 4th, and I think he fell off a little bit. But freshman making his first career start when he probably wasn't expecting to, he did everything he needed to. And, Ian White, Ethan Young, I still think is going to be a guy for this team. And, we didn't see a lot of the Nick Morans, the Taylor Grubbs, those kind of guys. But yeah, the guys who did pitch, they looked really good, and I think that's only the start. I think there's room for all those guys to get even better, even a guy like Pruitt who was already so dominant.
Yeah, Pruitt, he did throw, I think he had 3 walks, so if he can be in the zone a little bit better, he could be even more dominant. Is Ian White the new Danny Bill, Scott?
I was going to bring him up as the guy who really impressed me this weekend. His ability to work his breaking ball across the plate and kind of saved us at the end of the second game. So was really impressed with him. And here's a stat for you: everyone who pitched 1 1/3 or more innings this weekend was either a freshman or a sophomore. So this is a young pitching staff that's gonna get stretched out, gonna develop. But one thing that was way different than last year was we used a lot of guys, and we weren't shy about changing pitchers. I think we had a middle of the at bat pitching change. I think we used 12 pitchers in total. So glad to see that we're not going to just ride it out with 3 or 4 bullpen arms and don't want to say overwork them, but we're going to rely on a lot more guys this year than we did in the past, and that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, 12 pitchers, and we didn't see like a Michael Irby. We didn't see Jaden Winter. We didn't see Gabe Beschloss, the lefty. We didn't see Tyler Brashear. So, like, those are 4 more guys I think we'll see. We didn't see Ryan Towers, Brett Antolik, who are out right now. So, those 6 guys plus 12, that's 18 arms. I mean, I'm not saying, like, all these dudes are going to pitch regularly, but, like, you've got 18 guys that I think at some point – time or another, and I may be missing 1 or 2 are going to pitch this season, most likely, and pitch some big moments. All right. We had a question earlier. Here we go. Jared Plummer from the ECU Jungle says, I didn't see many/any take bunts this weekend. Do you think this is a change in philosophy? So we were joking, Wags. We were like, we all had Riley Johnson first fake bunt, first at bat, first pitch of the year. So we all missed on that. I can't remember who ended up being the first, but eventually there was one, but definitely not as many as we've seen in the past. So what did you think about that?
Yeah, I was surprised. And to be clear, I think even once we knew that Riley Johnson wasn't playing, that would not have changed my prediction. It would have been first pitch no matter who's hitting leadoff. It wouldn't have mattered. First pitch, that's what I'm expecting. And, we got past the first pitch. We're like, okay, it's coming. And then we're like, second pitch, okay, it's coming. Oh, it might not be coming. And it didn't for a while. So I was surprised just because I think I'm so used to seeing it. But at the same time, I think, and this goes into the Cliff Godwin discussion that I'm sure we're about to get into, moving to the dugout. I just think it's this team. This is a young team, a lot of guys who are still getting comfortable at the plate against this level of pitching that they're going to face. So a lot of young guys, I think, to me, and just speaking on my personal experience, I never played baseball at this level, obviously. I'm not a college baseball player. I quit sophomore year of high school for a reason. But to me, if I go up to the plate and I'm thinking of, turning back to get signs constantly, and there is still some of that, but if I'm feeling like I'm looking over my shoulder to feel like what's coming next, and as opposed to looking at the pitch that's about to come, then to me, I'm going to get in my own head. It's going to bother me, and then the at-bat's over. So I think with so many new faces, guys trying to, find their roles in this team and the staff trying to find those roles for those players, I think they're going to let them hit. And we're still going to see some of it. I'm sure we'll see some small ball this weekend in situations because you're going to have to win some low-scoring games, I think. But, yeah, I just think, maybe this team right now is not as able to play that kind of game as, last year or even how this team might be later in this season.
Yeah, and a lot of it is know your personnel, too, going off that. I mean, like we did see Braden Burris get some good bunts down, and there were a couple other guys. I'd have to go back and look at it. But, they didn't try to bunt some of the guys, some of the young players who probably hadn't bunted at all in high school. And, look, we've seen ECU bunt pretty much everybody, but you have to know your personnel, too. If you start asking them to do too much, I think it will backfire. Brian asked any thoughts on Cliff moving to dugout. So, Scott, as I go to you, and Cliff didn't give, I don't know if he expanded upon it on tonight's show from Inside ECU Athletics. I haven't listened yet. But he said after the game, basically, each year as a leader, you've got to look at your team, know what they need. And without saying it to me, I kind of took it as they're young. He needs their presence and his presence in the dugout and to be able to talk to the hitters, which he was doing in the on deck circle. What did you make of that move after one game and a couple innings, really?
Yeah, I think it shows how much we miss guys like Carter Cunningham that would come, after their at bat and discuss what they saw with the pitcher with the next guy in the lineup. And sometimes those guys develop that way, and sometimes guys just aren't as communicable as maybe other people. And I think we're probably looking to guys like Dixon and Colby Wallace to be those guys, and maybe they're just not. And that's okay too. You can be a great player and not be that kind of vocal person in the dugout. And if you don't have one as a upperclassman in the dugout, then I think Cliff needs to be in there to be that voice. And if that's the case this year, then I think that's the right move. Obviously Palumbo has been here for as long as Cliff has. He can and is certainly capable of working third base. So I think it's a great move. I think the players responded to it. And I think sometimes you just need to have that loud voice in the room that gets guys focused on the right things. And it worked out. We were 2-0 after he did it. So
Yeah, I'm not doubting Cliff. I do wonder how long this is going to last because I just know, like I think he's done it for a decade. Like it's got to be tough for him to give up that. Mainly just like getting the crowd amped up. Like there was a time during Saturday's game when I was there and ECU had the bases loaded and he was like on the top step of the dugout, like urging the crowd to give up even in the dugout. So that was kind of awesome. But like Palumbo is just so cool over there. Sometimes you kind of need that juice. So like what is that balance going to be like? Now he's still like when they call time, he was the one to go meet with the hitters. So he's still running the offense. Obviously Palumbo's doing some things as well. But I don't know, Wags, like is this it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's back in the third base dugout in 2 weeks, but it is interesting to see like how this plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I think similar to what we've kind of talked about all night. It's just we don't really know this team yet. There's so many new faces. Like we said, they're trying to find their roles, and I think Cliff's trying to find his role too. And I think Scott is completely right. I think not having that Carter Cunningham type, leader, and we've had someone like that like every year for as long as I can remember. You've had someone like that, whether it's Carter Cunningham or Zach Agnos, or you go so far back, and not having that, I do feel like you miss it a little bit. And if Cliff feels like his role is being in a dugout to where he can talk these guys up and kind of coach them, every single at bat, then he's going to be there. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it would have surprised me if maybe in a couple of weeks, Cliff's back there coaching third base for a big game. No, not at all. But at the same time, I think to me, it shows, and we all, every ECU fan, and I can act like I'm exempt from this, gives Cliff a lot sometimes for being, quote unquote stubborn and being stuck in his ways sometimes, I think. And to me, I think this shows that Cliff's willing to adapt to what he needs to put this team in the best chance to win. So I like it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then Cliff will be back out there. And it wouldn't surprise me if he goes back out, then he goes back into the dugout later on. So I think it could be a back and forth thing, and kind of it's a situational type thing. I mean, it happened at the end of the first inning in the second game. So who knows? You never know with Cliff. But to me, I think you have to adapt. The players are going to have to adapt, and the staff's going to have to adapt. And I think it's just the start of that.
Skull with a good point here, and I had this thought at some point this weekend. Don't remember what day it was. He says, "Does Cliff Godwin get thrown out more from the dugout?" I say yes, is what Skull says, and I 100% agree. I think he is going to come out of the dugout more because he wants to be on the field, and that's going to lead to more ejections. So I feel like this drastically changes our over/under. I think I went under 1.5. I'm going over, fellas. I don't know about y'all.
I thought he was going to get one this weekend.
I did too.
There was a close time. Yeah. So yeah, are y'all going over now?
I said over before, and you can set the line. I still think I'm probably going to take the over right now with this team. I don't really care what the line is. Give me the over.
All right. Will Stafford says Jaden Winter available. We assume so. We have not been told otherwise. So unless we hear otherwise, we'll assume he will pitch sometime this week. Jason DeCaro. Is it DeCaro or DeCaro? You're the UNC fan, Wag. So what is it?
I don't know for sure, but I've always said DeCaro.
Okay. Fun guy in the YouTube chat says DeCaro will be tough to beat Friday. D1 had him as the number 5 starting pitcher in the country. Yeah, DeCaro last year for UNC 6-1 in 18 starts as a freshman.
17-year-old freshman, I'll add.
There you go. So the Sean Jenkins of UNC.
Sean Jenkins is next.
89 and 2/3 innings pitched which is a ton for a freshman. 78 Ks and 89 innings, 221 batting average against, and 44 walks. So the walk number last year was a little high. Tough to hit off of for sure. So ECU will try to be patient. In the opener against Texas Tech, 5 scoreless innings, 1 hit allowed, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. So that'll definitely be a challenge, and they've got a good rotation overall, so it'll be tough. All right, Seatown Pirates says use the Liberty guys tomorrow. UNC will have a good report on those guys. Yep, Scott Jackson, former Liberty coach, now their pitching coach once again. Will Landon says, are you guys surprised Cliff didn't try to pick up 1 or 2 more proven corner outfitters from the portal that could hit for power? I don't know what, Scott. I mean, I think we did want to see one more bat, but I don't know, it just is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I think Will Landon had a birthday recently, so happy birthday to him. And it may be that we did try and we weren't successful. And I think that is probably going to be the case when we have questions like this more often than not. And I think part of that is NIL. It's going to be more difficult for us to snag some proven corner outfielder type positions because people want those. The SEC wants them, the ACC wants them, and they're going to be able to offer more money than we can at the end of the day. So I think we probably did try. We just probably were less successful than maybe we wanted to be.
All right. Speaking of power bats that can play the corners, Colby Thorndike, Casey Ramaley says, where would Colby Thorndike bat in this lineup? So Colby Thorndike was a former ECU player. I don't think he ever had in a bat. 6 foot 215, transferred out, went to Brunswick Community College, had 15 home runs there. Now he's hitting for Coastal in the middle of the order, playing first base. So, look, he would probably hit in the middle of the order. He's a good hitter. And for whatever reason, one reason or another, it didn't work out here. But ECU will have to see him in a few weeks. So I think, Wags, did you send that tweet from Carolina Curveball?
Yeah, I sure did. I was supporting Kaysen,
Supporting Kaysen. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun series in a few weeks for several reasons. All right, stat time. We're getting towards the end of our show. We'll make some predictions. We'll read our final comments here. Alex Peltier, according to Johnny Robertson, is the first freshman to hit a home run in a season-opening series since Spencer Brickhouse in 2017. So good stat there from Johnny. He also adds that Colby Wallace is the first Pirate to record at least 2 strikeouts as a pitcher and hit a home run in the same game since Alec Burleson in 2019. So 2 pretty big names there.
I find it hard to believe that Zach Agnos did not also accomplish that.
First Pirate to record at least 2 strikeouts and hit a home run. Yeah, I guess maybe in those games he pitched, he just never homered. But that is a fair point. All right, and the question of the night from Chris Allen. If ECU baseball has a down year for our standards, what reason do I have to live? Well, Chris, I don't know your personal life. I'm sure you've got some family somewhere. But there is more to life than ECU baseball. I know it is hard to believe. I know everybody that watches Bucks on the Pond, like this is the moment they live for. But it'll be okay, man. ECU has been really good at baseball for a long time. If they have a down year, they're going to be good again, and life will go on. Do y'all have any other thoughts?
I would add that we beat State in the Military Bowl, and that's a pretty good reason to revenge or to win 2 in a row against them in August. So that's right around the corner. ECU basketball hot streak. Still don't believe in them. But sure, we'll go with that.
There you go. Wags, what about you? What reasons does he have to live?
Yeah, just think about it this way. If we have a down year for our standards for ECU baseball, just think of how aggressive they're going to be to get it fixed for next year. So maybe we'll see I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that before I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, I think the last year ECU didn't make a regional, then they hosted the next 4 years consecutively, right, or something like that. So it'll be okay. Can't be dominant every year. So just enjoy the process, fellas. I know it's hard. All right. Will WAG's internet connection be okay this year? I think we've already established that. Pirate 247 asked. It will not be. It will not be. And that's something we get to live for as well. WAG's is shitty internet every single week.
Yeah, it's we're almost through 2 complete shows right now. I know we're jinxing it so badly right now, but as Igo was reading that question, he was freezing up for me. So, I was worried.
Really?
I was worried that we were going to lose it during this question. I was really scared, but again, I think it's a computer issue. I'm going to do my research. I have some ideas for if I start having more issues this year. We'll see.
All right. Let's make some predictions. If you guys want to get any final questions, do that now. I'll try to get to them. But first off, let's relook at last week's predictions. I think y'all had the Pirates going 3-0. I had ECU going 2-1. Sad to be right. Did anybody hit on their bold prediction of the week?
Not even close on mine.
No. I deserve to not make one this week for how bad mine was. But
all right, so let's recap. I had Sean Jenkins and Ethan Orby would not allow a run. That came to an end quickly, both games. What about you, Wags? You had Keenan Bowman, extra base hits?
I had Keenan Bowman would have 3 extra base hits.
Okay.
He did not have 3 extra base hits.
There was one time I thought he almost had one and then didn't work out, but
sorry, he had some good ABs, like we said. Good ABs.
You win some, you lose
at the
some.
start. Yep, that's right.
What was yours, Scott?
I had the Pirates to score over 10 every game.
God.
And they would not give up 10 runs on the weekend. That is unfortunately not even close to being true.
George Mason won the run differential.
We got outscored on the weekend.
Didn't have that. That's crazy, man.
Did we score 11 total runs? We barely made it to 10. So
yeah. 4, 4, and 3. Tough. Blame the turf.
Always.
Chris Allen says bringing up basketball does not help. You're putting me closer to the edge.
I'm right there with you.
Tim Earl was checking in with his bold take of the week. He says one of the UNC games, East Carolina wins by 5+ runs. And he says ECU wins tomorrow, loses Friday, wins on Saturday and Sunday. So he's got Pirates 3 in 1 week. Will Landon says, I'm saying 2-2 this week. Would it be huge if we can win Friday and put all the pressure on the Heels Saturday and Sunday? So I guess at this point, guys, it looks like the weather is going to be cold and snowy Wednesday night into Thursday. Do we think these games get played? Or should I bring in like a meteorologist for that question?
I think they'll get played. It's just a matter of logistically. It's tough because if Friday for whatever reason it's not ready, then Fridays in Greenville, Saturdays in Durham, Sundays in Chapel Hill. That's tough too. But if it comes down to it, they'll figure it out. But I think the games will be played.
JPN says bold prediction: one of the games does not get played. So you and JPN going head to head. All right. We will go week prediction first, our record for the week, and then we will, assuming all 4 games are played, and then we will make our bold predictions. So we'll start with Scott. What's your prediction for this week?
I'm going to go 1-3. I just don't like our offense right now, and I think UNC's pitching is so good that it's going to be hard for us to score enough runs to be in games because they are a very complete team. UNC's an Omaha caliber team. They're capable of winning the whole thing this year. and this team is young, and they haven't gelled yet, and I think it's going to take some time for it to happen. I'm terrified about playing at Campbell in the cold after last year, so I don't have a ton of faith in the team this week, and I hate saying that, and I'm typically wrong, so maybe it's a good thing.
Cliff Godwin is cutting your answer right now and posting it on the in the team meeting room tomorrow. Yeah, I'm tempted to go the same. For me, it's what happens at Campbell, and I just think Campbell with the cross country trek, it's going to be tough, and I think ECU finds a way to get it, and I think they win one in the UNC series. I'm going to go 2-2. But it's going to be a challenging week, guys. I mean, look, the Friday game, assuming ECU gets to play in Greenville, to me, that's the game ideally you need to get. Even though this team is young, like, you can rally behind a crowd like that. I know it's going to be cold and probably not slam packed, but I've seen a lot of ECU UNC games in Greenville where the crowd just wills them to victory. So Pirate Nation needs to show up Friday, assuming the game is played, because that's a big opportunity for this young team to build some confidence and put some pressure on North Carolina. So any thoughts, Wags, on record prediction for the week?
Yeah, well, I'm doing this for Skull Pirate, but I disagree with Scott. I thought Igo was going to go 1-3 too, so I was going to use that line anyways. But I'm also going to go 2-2, and I do feel like when me and Scott agree on the record, it usually does not go well. So hopefully we end up on the more optimistic side now that me and Scott disagree this week. But I think they come out and they beat Campbell. I think it's another 4-3 type of game against Campbell in the cold. And then the weekend, I think ECU takes one. I actually think, to me, and I don't know why, this is my gut, but I feel like you're going to lose on Friday, you're going to lose on Saturday, and I think you're going to end the week on a high note by finishing 500 overall on the week. And you're going to win on Sunday in Chapel Hill. It's going to give you some momentum going into a couple more tough weekends coming up. So I'm going to go 2-2, and I also think this is a bonus prediction. This is not my bold prediction. It's a bonus prediction. But I think the reason you win on Sunday is because Brad Pruitt leads you there in his first start in an ECU uniform.
All right. I mean, that sounds like a bold prediction to me, but apparently just a bonus prediction.
I guess I'm doubling down this week with 2 bold predictions.
He's secretly throwing out a second prediction, so that way when he gets his bold prediction wrong, he can try to go back to this one. Yeah. So before we get to bold predictions, like, how much does the conversation change if you win the UNC series? Like, because at that point, even if you lose to Campbell, you're probably ranked. I would think so. At least right on the cusp of it, because, I mean, that would be a massive series win. And, I mean, it would not shock me because, I mean, guys, here's the deal. ECU under Cliff Godwin is like when they're the underdog and a chip on their shoulder, like that's when they're their best. I mean, we saw it last year against Wake. He was like, everybody that was on the team was talking about like how amped up Cliff Godwin was before facing Chase Burns, and like he just went to another level. And I can see Cliff Godwin doing that this weekend. So how much does it change if ECU could find a way to win this series?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the rank discussion, and I'm glad you did. But you look at this past weekend, and a team like Cincinnati, they were not on the radar for top 25 for D1 specifically. And I don't remember them being in the 10 teams next out of the top 25. But Cincinnati went into a number 11 Duke in Durham and took 2 out of 3 with a dominant win on Sunday to win the series. And Cincinnati's now in the top 25 for the first time ever. And that would have been nice a couple years back. But yeah, I think if you go in and beat a team that I think D1's even higher on in UNC than they are in Duke, then it's going to make a statement. ECU was right on the cusp of the top 25 coming into the year. So, and it all depends too. I think, and it's tough because nationally it changes the perception, but I still think as for team outlook, to me, it doesn't win or lose it. To me, it more matters on how you do whatever you do. If you lose, 3 games by 1 run and you still have a whole lot of positives, then it's not the end all be all. You can still bounce back. But, if you go out and win the first 2 tight and then you go out on Sunday and lose by 15, then that changes it too. You feel a little less good about it. So It definitely changes it, but it doesn't change everything, is what I'm getting at.
What about you, Scott? You've been, I don't want to say negative, but definitely a little critical of the team. So, like, how much would it change your perspective?
I mean, I think it would prove that this team is ready to play. I mean, you're talking about a UNC team that I truly think is an Omaha team. Like either way, whether they win or lose the series this weekend, I think this UNC team is one of their better teams that they've ever had. If we go and take a series from them, that shows how capable this team is and what they can do going forward. Now, they would obviously have to continue that momentum into the LeClaire Classic and the Coastal Series because I think those are the next two hardest weekends that we have. I don't think anyone in conference is as difficult as those two weekends. But if we were to win the UNC series, then we are every bit as capable as we were 2 years ago of playing our way into a top 8 seed.
All right. Skull Pirate asks, will ECU baseball make a bowl game? All right. Skull, get out of here, man. You've had a little too much to drink on this Monday night. Let's go bowl predictions. Speaking of too much to drink, Wags, you're Mr. Prediction, so you started off because I don't even have one to pick. I got to make one up.
Yeah, I've kind of been it's funny that the week that I'm making kind of two bold predictions is the week that I didn't really have a first one. But I'm going to go kind of similar to the theme of, new faces on the team. And we talked a little bit earlier about some guys we didn't see this weekend. I think in the lineup, you're going to see two guys who did not play at all this past weekend, didn't get a pinch hit at bat, didn't come in late. I think you will see two guys that fit that category start a game this week. And that, to me, when I say that, I'm not thinking of Riley Johnson.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of two new guys.
So like a John Collins and
a John Collins and a Davin Whitaker. Those are the guys I kind of had in my head. So maybe a Roger Vergara, who knows?
Hey, you can go with Michael Kellenich. I doubt it'll happen if he didn't catch a doubleheader, but it's possible. And we'll see. I like the prediction. We could see. So it's got to be somebody who didn't play at all. So like somebody who pinch hit.
Yeah,
so I guess
if
Kellenich
they had
fall in
an
that.
at bat, if they pinch ran, if they defensive replaced, they are not eligible for this bold prediction.
All right, Chance Hall needs to start. Somebody crazy. All right, what about you, Scott Lorbatcher?
I go Sean Jenkins 7+ strikeouts in Durham on Saturday.
All right. Scott is riding the freshman. I am looking over my list of players, trying to come up with a bold prediction, and I've got one right now. East Carolina will walk off UNC on Friday night to win, or maybe Friday afternoon because it may be too cold. The Friday game will end with an ECU walk-off victory. That is my bold prediction.
Second walk-off of the year.
In the span of
maybe
5 games. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can't walk off on Tuesday.
You want to give us a bonus prediction and say who's going to walk it off?
All right. The bonus
count. We won't hold you for accuracy.
Yeah. Austin Irby. Austin Irby is going to deliver the walk-off for the Pirates in some form or fashion. And if that occurs, you guys will have to host the show by yourself after I enter the chat and leave after a minute. Take a bow. Next Monday night. All right. Gentlemen, we have made it an hour plus. It is time to sign off. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. For Scott Lorbatcher, for Jonathan Wagner, we will be back next Monday night, 9 o'clock. Everybody enjoy their week. We'll talk to you then on next week's show. This has been the Hoist the Colors Bucks on the Pond podcast.